Hello everyone and welcome back to Pharma Talks, the podcast where we explore how our industry evolves and how we change with it. What does it mean for us as vendors? What does it mean for us as pharma professionals? Today we are talking about something which is in the heart of change, the content. For years, pharmaceutical companies were investing in the content creation a lot of money, a lot of efforts. And now, it is the continuum, but this is the very different continuum. And we have a very knowledgeable guest in our studio today, Tim Pantello, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Relevate Health and the marketeer with more than 2 decades of experience in pharma marketing. So being in the front seat, Tim, of this content evolution, can you feel the change? So tell us about your experience, about yourself. So how do you feel that?
Well, I've been doing it actually almost 30 years now. So I'm not dating myself here. No, I mean, we're at the most exciting precipice of time, obviously, with not only the ability to produce more content, but to add relevance to that content and deliver it in more channels in the ways in which physicians and patients want to consume it. However, they're seeking to achieve their health information seeking tasks. We know more than ever before about them, and we can anticipate those needs. We can also rapidly produce content that support all channels of communication, and we can anticipate those things and really do content production planning, and more importantly, deployment and activation of that, and measure that unlike any time before. So producing more content isn't necessarily the idea, right? Moving from just, mass content production, and also an ability and easier ways to facilitate, MLR approval of that content. More isn't necessarily what we're seeking, and certainly what people are seeking. It's more relevant.
Yeah, that's relevance is the key word here. So how we are able to deliver with all the modern technology in hand, but still to be not shouting, do not have this, one-way direction while we are communicating to patients, to HCPs. We need to stay on the message. We need to stay relevant. So do you have any advice, secrets? So you will be sharing how we are checking, but we are still staying relevant. So what do you will recommend from your experience?
Yeah, I think there's more clinical signals today, certainly at the point of care, that we can action off of, knowing, when and how a physician is treating patients or a clinician is treating, and then being able to understand those clinical signals and then deploy content across all channels in the way that folks consume contents. Of course, video, peer-to-peer led content, I think, is also critical for clients to consider. They've done a lot of that in, I would say, more traditional live presentations and meetings, speaker bureaus, conferences. Physicians like to learn from other physicians. It's the number one thing is not necessarily always, needing that directly from the pharmaceutical company or their representative. So it has to be a blend of content that's produced and then enabled to not only be there at live physical events or just supporting those field-based conversations, but how to have contextually relevant content based on clinical signals, those perishable moments where they might have just seen a patient that presented with a certain diagnosis, a certain lab result, where they are in their treatment journey, where they may consider other options. Being there in those moments. So I think time is really important in connecting that to those clinical signals. We know more today than ever before. It's really more intelligent content and then deployment of that content. Not necessarily more, but more relevant and more timely.
Yeah, that's beautiful how you put this relevancy over just technology and the way we execute that. Because once we were before the omnichannel arrived, right? So we were all thinking like multi-channel, where we were talking in the specific channels about something not necessarily connected, right? So now we have to be very careful. Each channel has their own specific role. We connect it to the line of the communication to stay relevant,
Mm.
to stay helpful,
Yeah.
to stay knowledgeable. Even I notice a little bit, I will pivot a little bit to that angle of digital opinion leaders, right, as a new channel. This is still very much going up in the air. So
Yeah.
and this is a different format we are
Yeah.
all using today, where we working with those influencers and, who are HCPs, of course, and they are influencing our opinions, but hopefully in the right way. So do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think all healthcare is local. And it's been really the foundation of our company and our thesis, which is everyone has different levels of access and health equity, not only around the world, but specifically here in the US, depending on your insurance coverage, what your access to care is, the type of care setting, whether you're seeing the same physician in the same health system or not, levels of access to care over time. And so being able to be there in the moments that matter. And to your point, we moved from a multi-channel, which is having content in many channels, almost a series of point solutions for content. But now the ability to orchestrate that based on contextual relevance and time of need, you can, I think, achieve the context and the ability to engage and activate an HCP in the moments that matter and orchestrate that across channels. And that's really the premise of omnichannel. And I think, many clients over many years built marketing technology stacks and customer data platforms to enable the ability to deliver multi-channel. But I think many times it lacked the ability to truly orchestrate those channels based on those clinical signals and triggers, and then being able to deliver that at a hyper-local level that they'd much rather hear from a KOL in their health system, those more regional or local opinion leaders and digitally enabling them. I think we now have the ability to do that at scale, certainly through AI, and then deliver that in a more intelligent and orchestrated way.
Exactly. And we are touching this very important topic, AI,
Mm.
because through the years, the human element was in the
Mm.
center of those orchestration,
Yes.
right? And every, pivoting we are doing in omnichannel strategy was either it is a science makes us pivoting from the original plan and strategy, either the market. It was really purely human deal. So the human was in the center. Now with AI in the loop, so how the things are changing. So what do you see? Can we orchestrate better with AI having all the signals? So is AI helpful here? What is your view?
Yeah, I certainly think from a geo perspective, using the generative engines certainly it allows people to infer a lot more than just to receive a series of search results. If you
Yeah.
search for diabetes, you might have over 800,000 responses in Google. It's not very helpful. So it can certainly help an HCP or an allied health professional, a patient, involved loved one, curate answering their initial query. Folks want to go much deeper. I think when it's your health and it's your specific disease, your specific condition, and where you are in your journey, AI can, and certainly the generative engines, whether it's open evidence or others, are allowing, I think those initial queries to be answered, but then you want to get really specific around where you are and what product or treatment, a treatment path that would be right for you. And you want to go much deeper. And that's where, certainly the industry needs to meet people with, I would say, depth of content and then relevant content and being able to meet them across channels and across the journey. And that require, so I do think, the generative engines will help. And then it'll also enable clients not only to produce more content across more channels and also be able to get it approved through, the medical, legal, and regulatory apparatus at every client, because the information has to be trusted, it has to be valuable, it has to be credible. And you want that from the source, from the manufacturer and the investigators and the leaders in the industry that have clinical experience. And you also want to hear, and physicians want to hear from their peers about their clinical experience, and being able to produce, I would say, more content today and also do it in a compliant manner is critical. So on two ends, one on the generative side to help answer initial queries, but it's quite scary for patients when they go on the internet and just query something, and they want to understand where they are in their journey, what their options are. They want to hear from, certainly physicians want to hear from other physicians and clinicians about their experience, and patients want to hear from other patients that can truly empathize with where they are. And we have to produce that type of content and the breadth of that type of content, and then be able to deploy it and meet them where they are in the channels that they prefer. And I think AI is now enabling us to not only produce more voluminous content, but also be able to enable delivering that in those moments that matter based on where they are. So I think it's two ends of the spectrum, not only on their initial query, but then you seek depth. You may get an initial health information seeking task achieved through the generative engines, but then you want to go deeper, and then you want to go to the source. If someone's recommending you to, onboard them to a new product to treat their specific disease and condition, you want to know. Your health is your wealth. When you take everything away, there's nothing more important than your health. And before you make a decision with your clinician, you want to know.
You want to know. And this is where we are, like producing the content, we are fighting misinformation. So, and the AI is helping us. Using the technology is our mission today, to get the trustful information to be found by our customers, patients, in the way they need it, when they need it. So this is our mission today. That's beautifully said. And this is where we all, as agencies, as pharma companies, need to work together to bring this information online, to make sure it is found, to make sure it is helpful and it is true. So because the evidential information today, somehow, I would say sometimes the lower profile than the information from digital influencers about different types of treatment, which is not necessarily true with the serious conditions. But this is the human nature, as you are saying, Tim. We are scared. We are scared about our diagnosis. We are scared about our prognosis. So we are scared, and it's very easier to believe in something magical treatment over, I don't know, Pilates or gymnastics than to go to the doctor and embrace the truth and start to go, on the way to get to health again. So that said, so our omnichannel practices, AI engines we are building, all of us together, so they are fighting the misinformation online. They are helping people. So that's beautiful mission for today. I have a very interesting section coming up, which is called Hot or Not.
Okay.
Yes. They declares a very short answers for a couple of statements, which needs to be really, on your beliefs and how you feel about them.
Okay.
So I will pronounce one by one, and you just comment if it is yes, it is hot. If it is no, it is definitely not.
Okay.
Well, good. AI-generated content will dominate healthcare marketing.
Yeah, moving forward, I would say that that's a hot take. It'll certainly be AI enabled.
Excellent take. The next one. Pharma will finally produce less content, but better relevant content.
So is this binary, huh? Yes or no? I think maybe I split the difference here. I think maybe. So it's a blend. I think it'll enable more content. I think certain clients in certain categories will certainly continue to produce more content. I think the focus on how relevant that and useful that content is and how well they enable it to, I would say, meet people where they are in the journey and their ability to orchestrate it. It's not only more, it's whether it's relevant or not, and whether they can enable it to meet people where they are based on how they consume content and where they achieve health information seeking tasks. And enabling that, I think, is critically important. I think some will do it better than others.
Exactly, totally. And the other one, personalization. Personalization will become the default expectation for HCP engagement.
Yeah. So yes, absolutely a hot take. I would just add one comment, which is, personalization equals relevance, right? So I think we're getting closer to the promise of that. Obviously, we work in a highly regulated environment. I think AI will enable us not only to produce more content, but really deliver on the promise that I think we've all been seeking, which is personalization. I think I also think the broader market, physicians are people too, especially on the HCP side, right? And their expectations have shifted about, in the broader world, whether other categories, travel, leisure, consumer packaged goods.
They totally personalized for them.
Everything's, very personalized and tailored. We've all experienced that in other sectors, financial services, automotive, et
Everywhere.
cetera. I do think the expectations have shifted, and we should be delivering to these people who are making critical decisions on behalf of millions of people that we enable personalization and relevance.
Them, exactly. Very, very true. The next one, content teams will rely more on data scientists than on copywriters.
Question. I think that I might be in another maybe here. I think it'll be a balance. And I don't know if it's necessarily data scientists, but how we're using um, inference through these engines and through these large language models. That's going to be that you're going to be able to have more prompt engineers than data scientists. And so it's maybe a splitting of hairs here on the nature of the skill and competency. And I think the move from vibe coding to prompt engineers is sort of changing the nature of the technology roles that will enable our ability to produce content. I think you're starting to have agents work alongside humans and alongside editors, copywriters, and that will be not necessarily a data scientist, but more of a prompt engineer.
Yeah, that's more like the AI operators. So I would say so. We will operate on AI more than code or anything
Yes.
itself. So as definitely sits there somewhere is like we definitely will be able to create this environment where we are treating the AI agent as another team member.
Yes.
Who's knowing something. Right, great. The next one, AI will fundamentally change how agencies support pharma.
Absolutely. It's already happening today. There's a huge shift in expectations. I think historically, time and materials businesses are moving much more to focus on outcomes and fixed fees and what does the world the nature of the value exchange between agency partner, consulting partner, technology partner, the nature of that's changing and how they work and how they produce content, what's expected of them. I think it's going to free up much more time to provide more strategic value to the client, much more focus on the why, how they produce it, the remuneration of how partners are compensated is changing already, and the nature of how agencies show up at clients and what's expected is changing, and that's only going to accelerate. I think there's tremendous amount of opportunity there, and as agencies, they're agents on behalf of the client, really bringing strategic value, not only in producing more, but producing things that are more contextually relevant and customer need. And I think we've covered a lot of that today.
Exactly.
I think there's tremendous opportunities for agencies to have actually a bigger role, but a different role.
Yeah, I think there's a very interesting and challenging times as for pharma, so for us, for agencies, for vendors. So because the relationship change means like that we are evolving, we are learning fast, we are really changing how we are collaborating together. And we're bringing the new technology on the table, but we are there to help. Even with the new technology being able to create on their own, we are still partners. We are there to help. Yes, we are here to help and to support our clients to do their main business, to maintain our health, right?
Mhm.
So that the content operations, they are different, but they are still the major agency's business. That's very true.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Tim, for this nice, productive, and insightful conversation. We have touched many topics today, from the change in the industries, the content relevancy, the how our operations have changed. And we are very grateful for your time and your visit. And we'll be happy to see more interviews with you. If there is last statement you can tell to our audience, so some
Yeah.
advice, please use your moment before we close the session, because I think we have touched many interesting topics.
Yeah, I think it's the most exciting time to be in our business. Not only is there more personalized medicine, there's more abilities to personalize the content we produce and really get to that individual level for a patient, a caregiver, and certainly clinicians. So this is the most exciting time, and I think the time of most opportunity to support our clients in scaling really relevance and delivering that with precision today on some of the most important decisions that people make in their lives and has the most dramatic impact in their lives. So being able to support and enable that as part of the ecosystem to support our clients in our industry is really an incredible opportunity. And there's no better time to be in our business. There's certainly major tectonic shifts happening that we touched on today, but I would just counsel everyone in our industry that it's a huge opportunity and when there's change, there's opportunity, and things are changing quite fast, and I think for the better. So it's a huge opportunity for everyone to contribute more to our shared goals.
Thank you so much. So, my dear Pharma Network, with us today was Tim Pantello. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Relevate Health. Please subscribe, follow us. If you have any questions, you are free to contact Tim directly or just write on our website. Thank you and goodbye.